Yes, I'm the older person, that's very true.
Hello everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and honestly, an honor to be on stage with Erik Spiekermann, who, if you're not familiar with his work, you've brought some examples. So
I didn't physically, but I put them on the screen.
Why don't we have a look at those now? Why don't you play the video? And while we're looking at this, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at up here? I see a lot of letter A's.
Well, apart from the fact that it is significant for the beginning of the alphabet, that's why the alphabet is called the alphabet, by the way, in case you didn't. Okay. No, I thought we wouldn't have to do anything like this, but then I suddenly realized yesterday after I just got back from Europe, it might be a little arrogant that I presume everybody's seeing what I do. So I threw together this, whatever it is, keynote presentation, made a video, which is the safest way to present it. I'm not a video maker, as you can tell. I'm neither not much of a keynote maker, but this is basically the typefaces that I've been involved in designing for the last, 25?
You started in
5 years, maybe.
late 70s with typefaces?
Yes, I think so.
And what was the first medium?
Paper.
See, right.
I can still draw, these are digits, they're called digits.
But there were no computer graphic systems that you were designing?
Oh yes, no, the first ones were, I think, photo settings, so you actually did artwork, pen and ink, or in my case, cutting that red foil, which you guys call Rubylith. I think we used called Violano, is the brand name. And you did pen and ink stuff, whiteout and scraping and all that stuff. But it was easy because there was only like 126 characters to a font, not like today where you have 600. And then we progressed to the Icarus system, which meant you plotted your drawing with a little loop. You had 3 different points, corner points, tangents, and all this stuff. You guys know all this stuff. And then we had drawing on screen, which I'm lousy at. And that's why I commission all these cool young kids who can draw on screen like I can on paper, but more quickly.
The technology has changed dramatically, hasn't it? Excuse me.
It has changed drastically and dramatically, yes.
Both of those things are true.
But this is not my first language, sorry, but...
Barely mine. But it continues to. So one of the reasons we got to know each other was because we were both bringing typography to the web for the first time, which remarkably was sort of 2009, just about 4 or 5 years ago, when we finally were able to do that sort of thing. And you being sort of a luminary in the field and having one of the best collections through Font Shop and Font and those relationships, we're very quick to move to the web, to embrace that technology. So why was that?
Well, I mean, isn't that pretty obvious? I'm sorry, it was obvious at the time. A lot of people, it didn't seem obvious. A lot of people were sort of fighting this rearguard battle, like, oh, people will never read on screen, it's bad for your eyes, what have you. You turn blind, or that was something I should turn blind from, you remember, whatever. You know what I mean? There was all these stupid arguments, and it was obvious. You don't have to be a fan of the screen to realize people will be reading on screen. So when I heard about Typekit, and I knew you, way back from the old Wire days, I knew that you guys were to be trusted, and that if we wanted people to use different typeface, I say typeface, not fonts, by the way, I'll explain the difference next year. We have a typo conference coming in April, by the way. Then you can come there, and that was my plug. Next April here, we can talk about the difference. It was obvious that the stuff had to move somewhere, and people were getting a little bored with you in Arial or Helvetica or even Georgia or Banana. They're all great typefaces, but it's like drinking water and eating dry bread all day long. So if you wanted a little more spice in your design life, you needed type on screen, and you guys offered it. And I'm forever grateful, because without Typekit, we wouldn't be here.
That was my plug, thank you. So, yeah, you're right, it was a little controversial. I think in the industry there's been a strong desire, in the font design, typeface design industry, there's been a strong desire to protect the value. Whereas in our sort of connected and networked world, the digital goods are sort of devaluing. When you look at music and entertainment and things like that, rapidly approaching very small subscription fees. And I remember that when we were launching Typekit, we realized to do this at scale, to do it quickly, we would need venture capital. make this pitch to the VCs and say this is a great industry for disruption, and there's a tremendous technological opportunity, Spotify of typefaces, that sort of thing. And I remember one VC turning to me and going, that is amazing. People actually pay for the shapes of letters. Like, it was baffling to him that was a business in an industry.
It is baffling to me. I mean, I've made a living of it for the last, 25 years, part of my living at least. But it is very much like music. I mean, 90% of the music is probably not paid for, but the 10% that is paid for, is it 10% our or 10% is? Either way, right? Doesn't matter. I know it doesn't matter. That seems to be enough. I mean, I'd rather have 10% of the 99 cents that iTunes pay than the 100% of $99 that nobody pays.
Right.
Because essentially, if you want to try out a new typeface on a product, say on a website, I can't expect people to pay $400 and then say, oh, I didn't really like that very much. Right. That's just, people don't do that, and I don't blame them. So if you can have some sort of other model, either you only pay 99 cents, or loaning it, renting it, whatever, it makes people use it. I want people to use different typefaces. Like I want to go to different restaurants and try out different food and try different spices. Then I'll choose whatever model is possible. And nobody's died of stuff. No type designer's died of starvation yet. Not many people make a living of it either anyway, but it seems to be a human need to, like, we make music, we paint pictures, we write books, so we design typefaces. So why not?
So that's raises an interesting point. While you were, the video was playing, you focused just on the letter A, and you showed a tremendous number of them to show all these different flavors. Some look very old-fashioned, some look very contemporary and new, fun, relaxed, formal. I think a lot of people don't really see the nuances that's in the expressiveness of type. Why do you think that is?
Well, you're not supposed to. I mean, type is very much like, you turn on the tap and water comes out in our countries. And you go, we breathe and it's air. And type is very much the same. It's there, it's a commodity. You're not supposed to think about it. If you start thinking about it, it's disruptive. And it's not supposed to, reading is not supposed to be disruptive. To a degree. We read long copy because it's pleasant to read. And the type adds that, 2 or 3% of aesthetics added pleasure that we could do without. I mean, there's nothing wrong with reading everything in Georgia forever, content-wise, but who says that we can't enjoy it at the same time? It's very much like, I keep saying this, food is for me a good example, or why do people need, 1,000 different vineyards? I mean, I drink white and I drink red. I could say, of course I know the difference between the various varieties, and the same goes for type. People like to see it differently. There is research that people may even respond to it, but we don't really know. We didn't really know whether people respond to different ways of layouts. Does the line have to be 45 letters long or whatever? Some of that stuff is in the in-between, it's aesthetic, and it's maybe a first world problem that we want more typefaces. But, who needs all these different models of cars or bicycles? I mean, I have 13 bicycles. Why the hell does anybody need 13 bicycles?
You have 13 bicycles?
Yeah, at least. I don't ride one at the same time, I like to, but I also have more than 2 pairs of socks. By the way, I'm wearing the Om's sock color here as a shirt today. I didn't, so is he. We're all on cyan mold going on here. Whatever this is in RGB, I have no idea. It's 80% cyan, CMYK.
It's like a disease.
I'm an old guy, I know the CMYK stuff. So essentially, yes, I'm involved in a business that is totally superfluous. It's partly economical, and most of it's cultural. People like choices.
Sure. And there is a tremendous amount of fashion involved in typography as well. And that changes all the time. I think probably everybody is familiar with what has been happening on these devices with the latest operating system, taking a relatively sort of a bold statement, the fonts that they're using. I think I read it was Business Insider.
It's not bold, it's ultralight actually.
It's ultralight, it's not bold. I think it was in Business Insider I read a quote from you saying that the typography in iOS 7 was the folly of youth.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about
well, you walk into any design, say You know where London is, London, England, that is not London, Ontario. And there's a place there called Clerkenwell, where all the studios are. It's like Southern Market here. Right. And you walk in any of them, and there's these 21-year-olds. They come out of school when like 21, 22 in England, in Britain, I should say. And they discover Helvetica. And I think this is the most amazing invention. I mean, this has been going on for 50 years, and designed by some old Swiss guy who's been long since dead. And they think it's, they rediscover it, like you would discover, salt. You've been eating without salt all your life, and suddenly you put, oh my God, my food tastes so well. So they discover Helvetica. And then they discover that you can reduce it to like 2 pixels. And it's still, and it's beautiful, it's pleasant, and it sucks as an interface for a device like this. But you're so taken away by this beauty that you forget that the user may have a different task. So it's a beautiful typeface and totally sucks for an interface.
So the difference between something that's beautiful and something that's functional doesn't always need to be there, but you feel like it has been in the way that we're treating it on screen right now.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of times when you're a user interface designer, you have to forget your vanity, and it's not about you showing the world how great you are as a designer. It's making the product work, making people use it, which is for a young designer, when you're fresh out of school, of course you want to change the world. You want to make beautiful things, and you forget that you actually run a service. You're supposed to design things for other people, not for yourself or for your mother. But a lot of that stuff is done for people's mothers or girlfriends or whatever, or boyfriends for that matter. And that's all I'm saying. It's to design type, to get back to that topic if I may, requires a certain amount of modesty that I'm not personally known for, but what it means that, as you pointed out, you have a character A, and A is always an A. If it goes too far to one side, people won't notice it anymore, won't see that it's an A anymore. And so what we design is maybe a space of 5%. 95% is there. A to Z, or A to Z, as I would say, is not changeable. It's a given. It's a given set of rules. Another one for kanji, another one for Arabic, but our Latin alphabet, or the Cyrillic for the matter, or the Greek, has these givens, these constraints.
The shape of an A, it's not something you might innovate on.
So we work, it's almost like, in a way it's like music. I mean, you have 8 notes in our Western music, right? And it's amazing the variety, because then not only do we have tunes, we also have sound. And essentially it's what we do as type designers, we design the sound of a word, not the actual, the word is the word is the word, but it can sound so different. It can be a word played with strings or a word played with brass. It's still the same word, but it sounds differently, and that's all we do. And you have to be fairly modest to do so. If you're showing the world what a great designer you are, it'll probably become illegible, or it'll get on your nerves. There is room for that, as you said, passion. But I'm talking about the stuff that we would read in a book or a newspaper.
One of the things that I really enjoyed when we were starting to work on Typekit was meeting type designers, which I hadn't had a lot of history with in the past. And that craft is honestly very esoteric, very difficult, rarefied. There aren't a lot of type designers in the world.
Well, there's probably, I don't know how you would qualify that. There's probably, if you look at the numbers of licenses that FontLab has, for example, it's a couple thousand, or even maybe 10,000, I don't know. But there's certainly a lot of people who've used the program. What makes a type designer? I don't make a living as a type designer. I design type on the side. Most of the type I design is for clients, not for the market, not for your market, but for large corporations that are trying to streamline their communication or trying to avoid paying a license to a type kit by having their own stuff made. Actually, that's often a motive. So type designers that actually work full-time as type designers probably a couple of hundred. And I'm not sure whether many of those actually make a full living out of it. It still seems to be a bit of a sideline.
But it's hard. A typeface can take a year or more.
It's boring. It's incredibly tedious and boring. I reckon if somebody asked me, like the famous, as you guys say, ballpark, it'll take you about 100 hours to do one weight. If you have a concept and you sketch it out and then you digitize it, that's for a type designer that's a week. For normal people, that's 2.5 weeks. Because the day has 36 hours, as you all know, at least, and especially if you travel like I go back and forth, I add or subtract 9 hours going back to Europe, so I get a very, very long day that way. It lasts, I'm 25, so it does wear plus tax. So it is boring, it's tedious, that's why I share it amongst a few people. There's the programming part, the production part, the QA part, because you have to run stuff through the various tests, and there's the drawing part, digital drawing, there's the designing part. And I do the designing part, which basically I do paper sketches. So I'm an art director, I guess. You know, I have an idea and I sketch it out, and then I get all these minions, 2 or 3 of them, all colleagues, who will do some design. Some of them get credit, in other words, we split licenses, royalties, some of them just get paid. And that's why there's more people in the industry than you would see on the surface. They may not even call themselves type designers, but they're necessary to get this product to ship. And then there's guys like you who then make it usable. Because the typeface, you know, is a bunch of bits that is totally useless on its own.
Yeah, that's right. To make it more accessible in a variety of ways, right? I think one of the things that we were eager to do was not just help professional designers, but also bring the quality typefaces to, you know, WordPress themes and things like that. Opens up a much, much broader market at a much, much different price point. And that was one of the things that was relatively controversial among that community.
It still is.
Yeah, yeah, I know. It's just a very good change.
But there are still 2 markets. I mean, people still buy typefaces. Actually, they buy fonts. I should correct myself. You design a typeface, you make it into a font, and that's the thing you buy. Like you don't buy a song. You know, you buy whatever it's called. You buy an iTunes amount of bits or whatever it's called. It's not a song really. So anyway, people still print. I mean, there are still books. There's newspaper. There's a resurgence of sort of traditional stuff in the sense. At the same time, you make some of those available for screen, some you design especially for screen, some you adapt for screen. So now we have 2 or 3 markets for typeface. There's also the stuff that's on television screens, which is still separate, because that still is mostly bad. Or the way the Hollywood guys use type, they have their own total, you know, different world, which, you know, they have to be all caps, they have to go all squashed together, and they all have to use 2 or 3 typefaces. They're not Verdana for once, or Georgia. So there's all these different cultures and markets, and they're all coming together.
So I think there's a lot of sort of not professional but more casual use. People use their font menu all the time in the things that they're making. And I think, I mean, you talk about the analogy to wine. And I think a lot of people in restaurants can feel really sort of insecure about choosing the wine. I think a lot of people feel the same way about typefaces. Can you just help maybe give people a little bit of confidence of what they should be thinking about or looking at, why they shouldn't use Comic Sans?
Oh, why shouldn't they? I mean, people can do anything. I really don't care, but of course I do. But you know, it's not in my face. I don't mind. No, it's the same issue. We have the same issue at my office. You know, there's 60 people there, and I walk around, and suddenly within the 2 weeks, they all use the same typeface. I mean, we had a week where everybody used Stag from Christian Schwartz, and then we had a few months where everybody used FF Clan. And I go around and say, why the hell are you? Oh, because you kind of like it's lazy. Essentially, the first thing is you only use whatever typefaces or whatever fonts you have on your hard drive. If it's not on your hard drive, you won't use it. Nobody goes and checks it and buys it and stuff, except me and a couple of other idiots. Most people have what's there, or what the guy over there has. You know, what's this? Oh, I use it. So it's very much like I said, sort of Spotify. You know, you use what you've used before, and then you use more of it, and it's just more of the same. So I tell people to treat it just like you would treat any other design item. That you wouldn't use the same images for different jobs. You would go and research. You have a photographer take images for you, or you go online and find decent stock that people haven't used before. So you identify the issue, the project, say, you know, what's the audience, what's the medium, what's the message? Do we need, you know, a sort of muscular typeface? Do we need something feminine? Pardon the words, but they do exist, you know. So there is a way you can brief yourself to what your typeface has to do. Do we read lots of words? Do we read small type, big type? Does it have to be a big family? Do we only need 2 ways? Does it need to be condensed because we have space issues? Does it have to exist in Cyrillic and Greek, or maybe in Japanese and Chinese and Arabic? All these issues, if you brief yourself properly, the choices are very much narrow. And then you start to realize, oh my God, you know, there's only 4 choices because I am within this space. And then you go and commission another one. Happens all the time. I'm surprised myself.
You know, you mentioned something a few moments ago about paying for typefaces. I got my first internet account like way back in 1989, and one of the first things I found was an FTP server on the public internet full of fonts, which of course I just downloaded all and used in my work. And it's no secret in the type community that like the second link in a Google search will be a BitTorrent site for those font that you're searching for. But you know, it's different than music in that you're actually like the font file itself is the full source code of the thing that the designer and the team worked on. It's just rampant. I wonder how you feel about that as somebody who's practiced this for a long time.
Yeah, I haven't quite made up my mind about it. On the one hand, I like as many people as possible to have as much access to as many typefaces as possible, to spread it out there like music. At the same time, of course, you know, if you spend a few hundred hours on designing a typeface, that would be nice if that was honored. You know, if somebody would actually pay for your work. At the same time, you know, nobody's asking you to do the work in the first place, so it's kind of like, okay, it's out there, you know, it's your own fault. In a way, but people do pay. I mean, whatever the percentages, I have no idea. I'm sure, and there have been numbers in the industry for years, that 9 out of 10 fonts have been copied, used, pirated, whatever you want to call it. And so I'm always looking for ways of, as I said earlier, for people to try it out. Like there's various plugins, so you can try out what it looks like in Photoshop without committing to even the $29 or whatever it costs these days. So that's one way. The other way is yes, let people copy whatever they want to copy, but those people that realize, you know, we're in this together, that this is my work that's out there. And what would you say if I copied the code for you for the website, for my website? You would be pissed, quite rightly. And it happens all the time, we all know this. I mean, I've had people bring in portfolios with work that I did 20 years ago, because it was somewhere and they copy-pasted it and they don't realize it was mine in the first place. This looks rather familiar, but you get, I have designed this. In other words, I made a coffee for somebody 20 years ago, whatever. So, you know, it's digital, it's all over the place. There's nothing we can do about it. I'm having this issue at the moment. We designed a family of typefaces called Fira for Firefox, the Mozilla company. And it's open source, and it'll be on Google fonts. And I'm in two minds about it. And on the one hand, I think it's great that people can use it because it's a better typeface than Helvetica Ultralight for interfaces. There's a monospace version which the programmers like. So I'm kind of like proud to have my stuff out there, and you know the Firefox guys paid for it. But the danger is that because it's open source, anybody can get a hold of it, mess around with it, sample it, you know. I would say FUCK it up, but I couldn't do that in public. You know, mess around with it and make it worse maybe, and it'll still be attributed to us in a way. It's kind of, it's a little scary. Sure. It's, you know, then I might get blamed for some horrible stuff that somebody's done that's still under my name. But again, that's the risk you take. You know, I keep saying this is, you write a pop song and you can't stop anybody from singing it in their bath out of tune. It's out there. You're not going to send the police to them and say, hey guy, you're out of tune, you know. Tough shit. I mean, I designed it, it's out there, we'll see. As long as you know, don't blame me, okay? What I did was great. I think.
There are an increasing number of open source fonts simply because it's proven to be one of the best ways to add additional characters for all the languages in the world.
Yeah.
And like you say, even getting the basic Latin character set can take a year. Having more of a group effort on top of the designs, but fair enough, it also goes in different directions. So we'll have a couple minutes left. I wanted to ask you about why you think we're having this conference here. Ohm is a technologist and he looks for trends, and now one of his most popular conferences is about design. So what's going on with that in society and technology and our industry?
Well, isn't it pretty obvious? I mean, what we as designers do, we are intermediaries, we translators, interpreters. The world's getting ever more complicated for whatever reason, and we are the people, we are the interface, we are the people that may, at a certain point, make this world a little more comprehensible, easier to use. I'm saying the world at large, whether it's software or whether it's hardware, things are hard. And not everything is as easy as a hammer and a nail. So, you know, the tools have become more complex, and we're the people who make them not less complex, but we put another layer of complexity, the interface, as it were. Nobody wants to see the green on black. I mean, some people do, probably in this audience, but, you know, my mother wouldn't want to see the green on black. She would want to see the black on white. And that's what we do. We make the world understandable and hopefully a nicer place, an easier place. And there's a lot of things out there that I would like to change. You know, the interface for public transport, for example, sucks in this country. Well, public transport sucks in the first place. And there's a lot of other stuff out there that we have a role to play in making more usable. And if we can be paid for it, I mean, that's fantastic. What a great job we have. I mean, I'm getting paid to make things look good. Isn't that fantastic?
It's fantastic. And on that note,
that was a closing remark. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.